Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get latest notifications.
Assalamu alaikum dear students, hope you are all doing good. So let's start today's lecture. So this time we are studying about the 5 kingdom classification. So we have done with the kingdom Monera, fine. Now we will start with another type of kingdom, and this type of kingdom is known as kingdom Protesta. So as we have discussed that kingdom Protesta, fine, it includes all the unicellular eukaryotic organisms. Now regarding the Protesta, this kingdom Protesta, we know that it was given by Haeckel, and kingdom Protesta all the unicellular organisms are there, and all the unicellular organisms which have been kept there, they are all eukaryotic organisms. That means those organisms which have a true nucleus, and also they have membrane bound organelles. So let's discuss about the Protestants. Now kingdom Protesta, they have been divided into 3 main groups. Now what are the 3 main groups? That means Protestants, they have been divided into 3 categories or 3 groups. Now these 3 groups are, the first one is photosynthetic Protestants, fine, or we can also call them photosynthetic Protestants or Protestant algae. Protestant algae or photosynthetic Protestants, the example is dinoflagellates, okay, diatoms and euglena-like flagellates. So this time we are talking about the different types of Protestants. So Protestants have been categorized into 3 groups. So the first one is photosynthetic Protestants. Photosynthetic Protestants, or simply we can call them Protestant algae. And in this group there are dinoflagellates, fine, there are diatoms and euglena-like organisms. Now the another type is known as slime molds. Now the slime molds, they are also known as consumer decomposer protozoans, and they include acellular and cellular slime molds. So the first is photosynthetic Protestants and the second thing is slime molds. Now the third type is known as protozoans, or we can call them the protozoans, fine, or they are just like the animal like protozoa, we can call them. Okay, so 3 groups are there. The first one is photosynthetic protozoans, the second one is slime molds, and the third one is protozoans. And in protozoans, the examples are zooflagellates, the examples are sarcodines, the examples are ciliates. So this is about the 3 different categories of the protozoa. Now let me talk about the general characteristics of the protozoans. So when I am talking about the general characteristics of protozoans, since I told you that they are unicellular organisms, that means they are single celled, but one thing is there that they can form colonies. When they form colonies, but they cannot form tissue. That means there is no tissue formation, there is only colonial formation, we can say. So these protozoans, they are unicellular organisms and can form colonies also. Now about these protozoans are, as I told you, that they are the eukaryotic organisms. That means they have the membrane bound organelles. They have a true nucleus. Fine. So all the organisms which we kept in the Protesta, fine, they are all eukaryotic organisms. Now where these eukaryotic organisms are found, what is their habitat? Most of the protozoans, they are aquatic organisms. They are usually found in the aquatic habitat, but some are found in the soil, but usually the soil which is moist, where there is moisture, or the marshy places. Fine. So where there is moisture, we can find these protozoans there also. Fine. So but mostly they are aquatic organisms. So they are unicellular, they are colonial, fine, and they are found in the aquatic habitat, fine. And now about the cell structure, that what is their cell structure? As I told you, they are eukaryotic organisms, so they have a well developed membranous system. They have a double membranous system, we can say. They have the compartmentalization inside the cell. So there are different compartments. What are these compartments? They are the cell organelles. So all the cell organelles are present in the eukaryotic organisms. Fine. And now the different cells, the different organelles which are present inside the cell. Now there is one organelle which is membraneless, and that is ribosome. In case of monarans, as I told you that monarans also have the ribosome, but that is of 70S nature. But in case of now Protestants, they also contain the ribosome, but the ribosome is of 80S nature. Fine. So this is all about the cell structure. So they have a well defined cell structure, we can say, because they are the eukaryotic organisms. Now about the locomotion. So the next point what we have to discuss, that is the locomotion, that how these cells locomote, how they show movements. See, the organisms, these organisms, that is the protozoans, they show locomotion by three different structures. Some show locomotion either with the help of the pseudopodia, but some show locomotion with the help of the flagella, and others with the help of the cilia. So that means we can say the organisms which are kept in the kingdom Protista, fine, they use different locomotory organs for their locomotion, for their movements. Now when we are talking about the pseudopodia, what is pseudopodia? We know that pseudopodia, it is just the cell outgrowth, we can say. The cell, the protoplasmic, the membrane is forming an outgrowth like structure like in amoeba. And with the help of this, they can move from one place to another place. So this is about the pseudopodia, and pseudopodia, the example is amoeba. Fine. So the second one is about the flagella. Now what is flagella? See, flagella are the long outgrowths of the cell. Fine. Usually they are found, their number is 1 to 4, and they show the whip-like movements. So when they show the whip-like movements, fine, you know the whip, fine, which we use for the horses to move them quickly. So they use this whip-like movements in order to move. So flagella, but they are long structures, they are thread-like structures, they are long structures, but their number is less in a cell. It may be 1 to 4. So these long thread-like structures, they help in the locomotion of these Protestants. And the example is dinoflagellates and the zooflagellates. The dinoflagellates and the zooflagellates, they have flagella. Now the third type of locomotory organ is cilia. Now the cilia, what the cilia are? Cilia are the small outgrowth of the cell. Their number is usually numerous. Usually when we compare the cilia with the flagella, flagella are the long thread-like structure, while as cilia are the short thread-like structure. Flagella, their number is 1 to 4, while as the cilia are numerous on the body of the organism. And they show the road-like movements. The oar of the boat, you know, so they move like that only. While as flagella, they show the whip-like movements. Now this cilia, but they work in coordination. That means they are present numerously. I told you their number is various. Fine, their number is more than that of the flagella. They are present on the whole body of the organism, but when they move in coordination. Together they move. So these cilia, we found these cilia in the ciliates. The example is paramecium. So we can find such type of cilia in paramecium, which is a protozoan. So this was about the locomotion, that how these Protestants, they move. So this time we are discussing about the Protestants, kingdom Protesta. So we discussed about their cell structure and locomotion. Now one important point about the Protestant is their outer covering. As we know, monarans, they have the cell wall outside, but when we talking about the Protestants, they do not have usually the cell wall. They have the normal plasma membrane, the plasma lemma outside, but they may form an outer covering. That means after this plasma lemma, it is also surrounded by some other coverings, like for example pellicle, fine, or some shell, or sometimes it may be a cellulosic cell wall also, but in some cases only. So usually Protestants, they do not have a cell wall, but if possesses, they may possess the cell coat, or a pellicle they may possess, or they may possess a shell, or they may possess a cell wall also. So this was about the outer covering of the Protestants. Fine. So we discussed about the cell structure, the cell covering, their habitat, and also we discussed about their locomotion. Now let's start with another characteristic feature of Protestants, and that is nutrition. That which type of nutrition they are using. What is the mode of nutrition in Protestants? Now let's discuss that. See, Protestants, they show both autotrophic as well as the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now when we are talking about the autotrophic mode of nutrition, fine, they are usually photoautotrophs. So we can say some Protestants, they are photoautotrophs. The example is phytoplanktons. It is believed that phytoplanktons, they do almost 80% of the photosynthesis on this earth. And these phytoplanktons, where they are found? They are found in the aquatic habitat. Fine. And they are usually seen on the upper layer of the water, and they do the photosynthesis there. So that is why they are known as phytoplanktons. So planktons are what? They are the living organisms, and if they do the photosynthesis, they are known as the phytoplanktons. So their mode of nutrition can be photosynthesis. So some of the Protestants, they can do photosynthesis. That means they can make their food with the help of the light. So they are known as photoautotrophs. Now photoautotrophs, the example is dinoflagellates, diatoms or euglenoids. So this is the example of the photoautotrophs. So this is one mode of nutrition. Now the another mode of nutrition is heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So some of the Protestants, they show heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now what are the different types of heterotrophic mode of nutrition which they show? Let's discuss about that. Now the heterotrophic mode of nutrition, what they show, these Protestants, what they show, that is they are either saprophytic, fine, or they are either holozoic, fine, or they are either parasitic, or we can say they are either mixotrophic. So their heterotrophic mode of nutrition is different. So let's discuss one by one. So let me discuss first about the holozoic mode of nutrition. Now what is this holozoic mode of nutrition? See, holozoic mode of nutrition which can ingest an organism as such. That, like for example amoeba. Amoeba is engulfing any foreign particle inside, because amoeba is a protozoan. So amoeba is engulfing any foreign particle inside it, like the animals, like we eat. So we are taking our food inside our body. So the same way amoeba is also taking the food inside its body, fine, like animals, fine. So that is holozoic mode of nutrition. The example is amoeba, the example is paramecium. So amoeba, paramecium, they show holozoic mode of nutrition by engulfing the foreign particle inside. Now the second one is known as saprophytic. Saprophytic mode of nutrition is what? We know saprophytes are those organisms which can survive on the dead and decay matter. So now these organisms which live on dead and decay matter, fine, and they obtain their nutrition from the dead and decay matter, they are known as the saprophytic organisms. So we know now the Protestants, some Protestants, they show saprophytic mode of nutrition. Fine. And we know in saprophytic mode of nutrition, what is the mechanism? The mechanism is that they release the enzyme outside their body, fine, and there they do we can say that digest the complex molecule into the simpler ones, and once the digestion is complete, then what they do? They do the absorption. So they absorb this type of these minerals which are now outside their body, they absorb that and use that for their nutrition. So that is saprophytic mode of nutrition, and the example is slime molds. So slime molds, they show saprophytic mode of nutrition. Now let's discuss the another type of nutrition. Now the another type of nutrition is, so first one was holozoic, the second one was saprophytic. Now let's discuss the third one, that is parasitic mode of nutrition. And we know what is parasitic mode of nutrition and what are parasites. See, parasites are those organisms which live on the another organism in order to derive its nutrition from that particular organism. Fine. And that organism on which it lives, that is known as the host organism. So it selects some host, we can say. Now it enters into the host cell, it survives there, it takes its nutrition from it, and usually these parasites, they are pathogenic. They are disease causing organisms. So these parasites, they live in the host cell and derive its nutrition there. So they are parasites, they show parasitic mode of nutrition, and the examples are several, because we see these protozoans, they are the pathogenic organisms. Fine. So these parasites, the example is Trypanosoma, the example is Giardia, the example is Entamoeba histolytica. Fine. So there are so many and so on. There are so many protozoans which are pathogenic, which are parasitic, we can say, and they show the pathogenicity. Okay. Now the last one is the mixotrophic. Now what is mixotrophic mode of nutrition? When we talk about the mixotrophic mode of nutrition, fine. Now mixotrophic, some organisms, they do not show only one type of nutrition, no, they can show several. The example is, for example, Euglena. The Euglena show phototrophic as well as the saprophytic mode of nutrition. That means they show both, that is why that is known as the mixotrophic, that is mix. So mix is what? That is mix of phototrophic as well as they show the saprophytic mode of nutrition. So this was about the nutrition part, that how they can get their nutrition. Fine. Now we have to discuss the another type. Fine. The another characteristic here is now the reproduction. Now how these protozoans reproduce, how they can produce their offspring. Fine. Now when we are talking about these protozoans, or we can say the kingdom Protista, fine. Now these Protestants, they can show their reproduction both sexually as well as asexually. So that means we know now what is sexual type of reproduction, in which only one parent is involved. Fine. Asexual reproduction is that in which only one parent, and sexual is in which both the parents are involved. And these Protestants, they show both type of reproduction, that is asexual as well as sexual. Now what are the different types of asexual reproduction? Let's discuss that. Now there are various types of asexual reproduction which these Protestants shows. Now the different type of asexual reproduction are, like for example, the first one is binary fission. The second one is multiple fission. Fine. The third one is fragmentation. The fourth one is budding and the spore formation. So they show the different types of asexual reproduction. And we know regarding this type of reproduction, like if it is binary fission, simply means the division of a parent cell into two equal daughter cells. So one cell is divided into two, and in multiple fission what is there? One parent cell is divided into several daughter cells. If it is 2, then it is binary fission. If it is more than 2, then it will be a multiple fission. Now what is budding? Budding is simply formation of a bud on the body of the organism, and then that bud gets detached from the organism, and that bud is able to produce or to develop into a new organism. That is budding, okay. And then the last one is spore formation. Now what is spore formation? Spore formation means formation of spores. So Protestants are also able to produce spores. Fine. And these spores, when get the suitable conditions, fine, when they get the suitable substratum, they can get this, we can say they can develop there into a new organism. So this was about the asexual mode of reproduction in which only one parent is involved. Now about the sexual mode of reproduction. Now what is sexual mode of reproduction? Sexual mode of reproduction in which two parents are involved. Fine. And in Protestants, the sexual mode of reproduction is of two types. Either it may be simply by syngamy, or the second thing is they may show conjugation. If it is syngamy, what it is syngamy? Syngamy is simply the fusion of gametes and the formation of a zygote. This process is known as fertilization. And the second thing is what? Conjugation, as we discussed in the Protestants also. Conjugation means what? Simply the two cells will be there, one will be male and the other will be female, fine. And the male is the donor cell and the female is the recipient cell, in which they are changing. The male is transferring its genetic material, that is the extra chromosomal material, into the female, fine, and both will become the F plus cells. So that is the conjugation. So hopefully you understand all the characteristics of kingdom Protista. So now we know about the kingdom Protista. So kingdom Protista, fine, we will see the organisms, they are usually in the aquatic habitat. Fine, and these organisms, these Protestants, fine, they either show they are either phototrophs or they are heterotrophs. And they show different mode of nutrition as well as they show different type of reproduction. So this was about the Protestants. Hope you understand all the characteristics. So this was about the Protestants. So we have to start then with the another kingdom. So inshallah that we will do in the next lecture. So take care. Allah Hafiz.